Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here, columnist Ryan Karchi. We're hoping this works. Laptop's acting up a little bit. Anyway, we are somewhere in the bowels of the Cool Center. Um, we're actually, the laptop is actually on pieces of the floor that have been taken off because I guess they sort of believe the hockey
We
thing.
promise we're not in a warehouse.
We're not in a warehouse. We did not actually get kicked out and forced to move. There's actually like a golf driving range back behind that curtain.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully you can hear us. Anyway, final score tonight: Indiana 50 or Wisconsin 57, Indiana 50. Just basically got away from the end. I mean, I don't think it was really. I mean, they were able to sort of play Wisconsin's game and play it pretty well, more or less. I mean, you can't really ask for a whole lot better performance than when you saw playing this type of basketball. It's very, very different. It's extremely slow pace. There's not a lot of room for error. You can't make a lot of mistakes. They pretty much did a pretty good job, I thought, of more or less answering the bell for possession to possession.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that was my concern kind of going into this game for them was that they wouldn't be able to keep at that pace, that they would turn the ball over a lot. I mean, they turned the ball over 10 times, which
there were a couple not great ones.
Yeah, by all means, that's not that bad of a total. But really, what this
for
game
possession by possession, I don't know what the average is. I mean, that's still more than what you want. But it wasn't a major turnover problem. I mean, they had a lot of them were dead ball turnovers. They didn't turn into, fast breaks or anything like that. They didn't give up any free buckets, really. Not a lot of them anyway.
This game came down to the last 2 minutes, and it's kind of like what Verdell Jones said after the game was that, for 38 minutes we gave it our all, and it was those extra 2 minutes. I mean, in a Big Ten,
really the last 103. I mean, there was what it really came down to was some offensive rebounds, and that's really, like you said,
in a Big Ten road game in those last few minutes. I mean, and especially at the Kohl Center where it's been notoriously hard to win. I mean,
for everybody.
You can't just play solid offense, solid defense, whatever. You have to be nearly perfect to win a close game down the stretch. I mean, all the odds are stacked against you in that situation. So you have to out-perfect the other team. And really, in this game, Indiana had a chance. I mean, in that last minute three, I mean, this game could have changed completely if a few bounces would have gone Indiana's way. And I think you kind of saw that reflected on Tom Crean's face afterwards, and Christian Watford and Verdell Jones. They all clearly looked like this was the most frustrating loss of the season.
Yeah, it was. You could tell it was definitely up there because they knew they did a lot of the things they wanted to do. I think at the end of the day, they realized that as much as they wanted to make this their game, as much as they wanted to get up and down, at the end of the day, Wisconsin just is not going to allow you to do that. No matter what, they're going to slow it down. They're going to take all 35 seconds and sometimes more. I mean, I think Wisconsin had 3 35-second violations today, and they'll do that. Basically, they'll wait that long on the clock to make something happen because that's how they operate. They
count on you falling asleep on them eventually.
Exactly. They want you. They want to run you around a lot. They want to not just take the time off the clock, not let you play fast, not let you take a whole heck of a lot of shots. They defend really, really well, and that's the kind of type of game they played. And Indiana was able to hang with that for a long period of time. But again, the last minute or two, they were able to just sort of out-physical them.
For a while, this game, I mean, it kind of ended similar to a few games this season, but for a while this game kind of looked like bizarro Indiana. I mean,
really bizarro Indiana.
The first half, you have Verdell Jones leading the scoring with 12 points on 6 of 7 shooting.
I think he was I've seen him have some good games, especially sophomore year. People kind of forget as much as he's sort of getting just constant flack, hate, everything else in recent years. When he was a sophomore, he played really well. He was able to have these kinds of games. I don't know if I've ever seen him that effective. He's good off. He's been good off the dribble before, but today he was really good off the dribble. I mean, he was able to create a lot. There were a lot of holes there because it seemed like they were really concerned about shooters and giving up the three. And Verdell probably had more space to kind of work around people than I've ever seen. He really attacked it.
But 0 points in the second half. I mean, he turned the ball over. I think both of his turnovers were in the second half.
No, he had an entry pass that got away from him in the first half. Him and Holtz both tried to get him to Cody.
He was 0 for 3. He was a non-factor in the second half, and I mean, he was kind of carrying some of the load that was gone because Cody Zeller for the first half didn't have a single point. I mean, he had no points and 2 fouls. Yeah. And it was the fouls that really got to him, and I thought Jared Bergeron played him maybe better than anyone since the Michigan State post players.
Anyone man up, and I thought Solinger did a pretty good job in the road game, in the game at Ohio State. But for the most part, I mean, I would say that's true too. But I think if we're going to discuss Cody, we kind of had to get there eventually. I was trying to slow play it, but I think we sort of have to talk about officiating to some degree. It's not an easy conversation to have. One, because we're running the live chat half the time, and we can only see these things so closely. There's 1,000 times people are like, "What'd you think about that call?" And I'm like, I barely saw it. I don't know. I was trying to approve 20 comments, but it was very, very clear afterwards that Tom Crean was frustrated about it, and he made sure very much to not even touch that. He was asked, what do you think of the free throw disparity? Wisconsin shot 19, made 15. Indiana shot 10, made 5.
And Indiana
18 to 10 on the fouls.
Indiana drove to the basket much more than Wisconsin did in this game.
Yeah, no, they attacked a lot. There were quite a few plays you could say, okay, that probably should have been one. And one of the key, probably the rebound that really clinched it at the end of this game, Mike Bruzewicz more or less tossed Cody Zeller on the floor, and not a whistle at all. Now, again, it's tough. I mean, you never know exactly sort of what the definition is. Okay, why is this a foul? Why is that not a foul? Why is this contact okay? Why is that contact not okay? But it was clear there was a differential, and Crean did not want to go there really at all. And he just said, look, please, just if you want to watch the tape, whatever, I'm not going to go there. Because I think, you don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he knew that if he started talking, he was going to get fined.
And I've never been one to go to criticizing the officials,
because it's weird. First off, it's weird if you're a beat writer because it's going to sound homer. Basically, it's going to one way or the other because you never really notice. Nobody points it out to you as much when it's the other team. I mean, a lot of people have said that Indiana probably got some calls in the Ohio State home game.
The truth is it evens out in the long run. Especially, it's not just Indiana that's getting bad Big Ten officiating, if you want to call it bad officiating.
It seems there seems to be home cooking on both sides. I don't know. Yeah. And that's always the case, but it seems more dramatic. And I don't know if that's true. I don't have empirical evidence to prove that or anything like that. But Indiana seems to get a lot of calls at home. I thought they got a lot of calls at home against Penn State, and it seemed like Wisconsin got a lot of calls at home tonight. It's been a weird deal, and I think Crean was asked at the end, why didn't you play Cody until the last minute? He picked up his fourth with about 5:20 to go.
It was kind of strange. Yeah.
It was a little bit strange, but he basically he really watched his words there. Kind of really was extremely measured, and he said, okay, let me think about this. And he took probably a good solid 20 seconds just forming his answer before he decided exactly what it was he wanted to say. And he said, we just didn't think he was going to be able to get a flow, that he was going to be able to play extended minutes. And what he was really saying was, I didn't think he could play 4 minutes without them calling a foul on him, more or less. So it was a kind of a weird deal that he ended up pulling his best player for the last minute and a half. And it's a good question. When you're dealing with a guy that's got 4 fouls, especially the post player where it's going to be rough, when do you take your chance? When do you take your shot? And it was an interesting question, I think.
Now, would that have made the difference? We won't know. Anyone is capable of getting those offensive rebounds. Maybe Jordan Hulls gets the offensive rebound when he had to foul Ryan Evans.
You don't know where the ball's going to bounce.
You don't know where it's going to bounce. And in this game, that's really what it came down to. It came down to those final few bounces that didn't go Indiana's way. And I think that makes this game significantly different from the Nebraska game.
Oh, sure.
We talked about this a little earlier. It's just Indiana went blow for blow with Wisconsin. It wasn't. They didn't hand the game to Wisconsin. It was something that they lost barely. It slipped out of their hands late. And that's an improvement. That's to have kind of the focus to keep yourself in late and to hit a few shots at the end. Obviously they needed to hit more shots and they needed to get more offensive rebounds at the end, but there's a level of improvement there, I think.
There's something to be said. I guess there is definitely a glass half full, glass half empty kind of situation here because Indiana fans, I think, are still looking for now another win since that 3-game losing streak to kind of remind them, okay, this is still the team to beat Ohio State, it's still the team to beat Kentucky, and you obviously didn't get it at the end of the day. That was still, this is not a great Wisconsin team. We've seen much better Wisconsin teams, and this was the type of, it's a middle of the road, middle of the pack team, and you if you're an Indiana fan, you did want to see them manage to pull one of these games out against a team that's really hard to beat on the road, but really isn't so much more talented than them. They don't match up bad. When you really look at kind of player for player, matchup for matchup, Wisconsin wasn't that much. I don't think Wisconsin is more talented than Indiana necessarily. It's at least even. It's just Wisconsin makes this their game, and it was how well could Indiana play their game, and Indiana did a pretty good job of playing their game for more or less 38 minutes. So there's that positive to it. But at the end of the day, if you're an Indiana fan, you still want them to pull one of these out just to kind of make another announcement like, hey, we're going to go, we're going to fight for a Big Ten title. And 5 losses is a lot to still, at this point in the year, just past, right at the halfway point to have 5 losses. It's,
especially
you're really climbing uphill with that.
Especially with 2 very important road games coming up in the next 8 days. Really? One at Michigan, one at Purdue. Those could very well decide the direction that the rest of Indiana's season goes.
So it gets interesting. Hopefully you can still hear us talk.
You probably can.
Anyway, we're out of here.